Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Helps us out a ton. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. If you're looking for my MLB best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at Pickdawgz.com. Of course, I'm always running my $15 MLB best bet, so check it out at Pick Dawgz Premium. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Tuesday, September 20th. First up, we see a doubleheader between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Game 1, a 3:10 Eastern start time. Game 2, a 10:10 Eastern. Now, Tyler Anderson is expected to pitch in either Game 1 or Game 2 for the Dodgers as he makes his return from the paternity list. And as a left-handed pitcher, I do think he'll have success in this doubleheader as the Diamondbacks haven't really done much against lefties in the last month. They're 27th in team OPS. Their isolated power numbers are also in the bottom 10 in the league. So I think Anderson will have a pretty good outing. Michael Grove is the other projected starter for Los Angeles. He just faced these Diamondbacks back on September 14th. He went 5 innings, striking out 4 batters, but giving up 2 home runs, 2 solo shots in that game. That was a 5-3 Dodgers loss in extra innings. Now for the Diamondbacks, their starting pitcher, right now they only have one listed for either Game 1 or Game 2. Zach Davies should be pitching in this doubleheader, and overall a 4.06 ERA for him. A little bit worse numbers on the road, that 4.85 ERA and about 65 road innings. I don't really love to see his strikeout numbers at only 48 Ks and 65 road innings, so that is a little bit concerning. 14 home runs allowed as well on the road, and he's given up 5 home runs in his last 2 starts combined, so not really loving him in this doubleheader. I would probably look to back the Dodgers when Davies is on the mound, or Anderson, or if Anderson is facing Davies. Not too bad of a spot there for Los Angeles. So I'm going to take the Dodgers when Anderson's on the mound and look to fade Zach Davies in this doubleheader. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Brian Bayo and Nick Lodolo are the starters. Now, Brian Bayo is in good form right now, and even though his ERA is at 5.1 on the season, his last start against the Yankees, 5 innings, no earned runs. He gave up 3 unearned runs, but the defense didn't help him there. 6 strikeouts. The previous start, he gave up 3 earned and 5 1/3 against the Orioles, but he was looking real good in that game, striking out 7 batters. The last inning for him, he had a little bit of issues with his control, giving up some walks, but against the Rangers before that, 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs. He hasn't given up a single home run this season in 42 innings of work and about 42 strikeouts also, so about a strikeout per inning, which is exactly what you want to see from a young starter. On the other side, Nick Lodolo, pitching at Great American Ballpark, you would think maybe some young pitchers not really pitching too well, like Hunter Green, for example, at Great American, which is a very hitter-friendly ballpark, but actually Nick Lodolo loves pitching at home, and he struggles on the road, but luckily for him, he's pitching here at Great American, a 2.77 ERA in 55 innings at home this season with 75 strikeouts in those innings. He's missing a lot of bats in his home starts, and you look at his last 2 games, he's gone 14 in the 3rd innings combined against the Pirates and the Brewers, and he's got 22 strikeouts in those innings, so he's missing a ton of bats. He's not really giving up too many walks as well, only 1 walk in his last 20 innings of work. Very impressive stuff. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, at least through the first 5 innings. I don't really like either of these bullpens, especially at Great American, so I'm just going to take the under in the first 5 innings at 4.5 runs. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Miami Marlins. Adrian Sampson and Pablo Lopez are the starters. Now, we know this Marlins lineup is not the strongest in the second half of the season, and they're facing a pitcher in Adrian Sampson who's had really good stuff on the road in 38.2 innings away from Wrigley Field. He's got 37 strikeouts, giving up only 1 home run and a 2.79 road ERA with a 234 opponent's batting average. I think he pitches well in this spot, but I also do like Pablo Lopez. His last start was a real nice bounce back after he struggled against the Mets a few starts back, but against the Phillies, 6 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts. It's exactly what you like to see from Pablo. I think he has a good outing himself. I'm going to take the under in this Cubs-Marlins ballgame. In our next game, we see a great matchup between the Houston Astros and the Tampa Bay Rays. And we're going to see Shane McClanahan and Christian Javier as the projected starters. Now, Christian Javier and Shane McClanahan both having great seasons on the mound, both starters below 3 ERAs. But I do trust the Rays and McClanahan just a little bit more, so I'm going to take them on the money line here. Christian Javier didn't give up a home run in his last start, but he did give up at least 1 home run in 8 of his last 9 starts before that one. And the home run ball has hurt him in his career and this year at times. I do think the Rays, a lineup that can hit hit righties pretty well, and a lineup that has some pop in it. I think they'll be able to get to Javier for at least one home run, if not more. And Shane McClanahan's another pitcher that at times this season has had issues with the long ball. However, he's doing a really good job of keeping the ball on the ground in his most recent games. In the month of August, he only gave up one home run in 25 innings of work, and to start September, only no home runs in his first 5 innings against the Blue Jays with 5 strikeouts. His ground ball percentage going up a little bit. In August, he had a 43 to 26 ground ball to fly ball ratio, exactly what you want to see from a guy who had issues with the long ball in the month of July. So I liked McClanahan in this one. I think the Rays are going to grab the win. Give me the Rays on the money line. Next up, we see the Blue Jays taking on the Phillies in Philadelphia. Kyle Gibson and Ross Stripling are the starters. Now, this is not my favorite game on the board, but I am going to lean towards the over in the first 5 innings. I don't really have a lot of faith in either of these starting pitchers, even though Kyle Gibson has been much better at home in terms of his ERA. On the road, a 5.31 ERA, at home 3.9. He's still given up 13 home runs in about 92 innings of work, 68 strikeouts in 92 innings. Not what I like to see. A 249 opponent's batting average is a little bit higher for a guy who's supposed to be a number 3 in your rotation. And Ross Stripling on the other side, his ERA is below 3 overall this year, but he's giving up a lot of home runs and not really striking out a ton of guys in his last at least 2 starts, going 12 innings, only 8 strikeouts, giving up at least 1 home run in each of his last 4 starts. That does concern me. The ball is ground ball percentage is way down in the month of September so far, a 13 to 34 ground ball to fly ball ratio, and the Phillies have been hitting righties very well. Number 5 in isolated power, number 3 in team OPS. Both of these lineups are strong. I don't really trust either of these starting pitchers, so give me the over in the first 5 innings between the Blue Jays and Phillies. Next up, we see the New York Yankees hosting the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to see Nestor Cortes going for the Yankees, but no official starter for the Pirates right now, so there is no official lineup for this game. We know the Pirates have struggled in terms of strikeout rate against lefties this season, as right now in the last 30 days, 29% against lefties, and I don't think that's going to be good against Nestor Cortes, who's had a pretty good strikeout rate overall, 142 Ks this season in about 140 innings, so above a strikeout per inning, and that's exactly what you like to see from a guy like Cortes. He's missed some time due to injury here and there, but he's been a really good starter for the Yankees this season, and even at home at a Yankee Stadium ballpark that's more hitter-friendly, a 2.34 ERA in his home starts, and his last start against the Red Sox, 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, only 1 earned run allowed. I got to take the Yankees in this game. I think they're just a better team overall. I'm going to take them on the run line in this one. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Joey Wentz and Austin Voth are your projected starters. Joey Wentz hasn't really been too bad on the mound for the Tigers in his limited work at the major league level. His last 10 2/3 innings with 10 strikeouts and only 2 earned runs allowed, not too bad. And the Orioles against lefties, they haven't really done much. 26th or 27th in isolated power, 29th in team OPS, and the 5th highest strikeout rate at 27.6%. Those aren't great numbers, and I don't think you should be laying minus 200 with a team that has struggled to hit those lefties. And on the other side, Austin Voth was a starter that I said had a lot of value on him in July and going into August and a little bit in September, but I think the value is kind of slipping away, as I don't think he's a minus 200 pitcher quite yet, even though he has been sharp as a starting pitcher. We have seen him not really go too deep into games lately. His last 3 outings, one of those wasn't even a start. He only went 3 1/3, 4 innings, and then 1 inning. So not really pitching too deep into ball games. And I do think the Orioles bullpen had a really good start to the year, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit. I'm going to take a shot here with the Detroit Tigers plus the 1.5 runs on the road. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Atlanta Braves. Patrick Corbin and Charlie Morton are your starters. Now, I mentioned in Patrick Corbin's last start that when he's facing a team that's not really hitting lefties well, it may be a good idea to take him because there's probably going to be a lot of value on him. And he faced the Orioles last time out. He pitched well. The Nationals bullpen didn't pitch very well, so they weren't able to cover the run line. But he went 6 innings, 1 earned run against the Baltimore Orioles, who we just mentioned can't really hit lefties these days. However, you're not facing the Orioles. You're not facing the Marlins. You're facing the Atlanta Braves, a team that's crushed lefties this season. They got one of the lower strikeout rates in the last month against lefties. Their team OPS is in the top 15. Their isolated power is also in the top 15. And overall this season, it's been in the top 10 against lefties. So I don't like this spot for Patrick Corbin at all, especially on the road, where his ERA away from home is even higher than his overall ERA at 6.11 overall this season, 7.83 on the road. I can't trust Corbin. Even though the Braves are huge favorites and there's not really a good price in this one, I still got to lay the 1.5 runs with the Atlanta Braves at home. Next up, we see a national TV game between the New York Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers. This one at 7:40 Eastern on TBS. Carlos Carrasco projected to go for the Mets. No official starter for the Brewers right now, so there's no official line. When you look at Carlos Carrasco, his numbers on the road not nearly as good as when he's pitching at Citi Field. A 4.42 road ERA in about 57 innings of work, giving up 9 home runs with a 270 opponent's batting average. And, you look at Carrasco's starts, he's faced a good amount of weak lineups, especially as of late. The Pirates, the Marlins, the Nationals. He did face the Braves back on August 15th and August 4th, but gave up 6 earned runs combined in 8 innings of work with 3 home runs allowed, so didn't pitch well in those games. He faced the Reds, he faced the Marlins, had success against them, but now you're facing the Milwaukee Brewers, a lineup that does hit righties very well. You're pitching on the road when you haven't pitched very well on the road this season. I just don't love this matchup for the Mets or Carrasco. I do think both of these bullpens are good. I think both of these lineups are good against righties. If the Brewers decide to go with a lefty on the mound, I do think there's an advantage there for Milwaukee, as the Mets have not really done much against lefties this season. So we'll have to wait and see who the Brewers decide to go with on the bump, whether it's an opener in a bullpen game or maybe a starter. But I'm going to take the Brewers right now, lean towards them on the money line. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Texas Rangers. Mike Mayers and Cole Reagans are your starters. Now, at first, it looked like Patrick Sandoval was listed to go for the Angels in this game, but he has been moved, and Mike Mayers will go for the Angels. And when I was looking at Sandoval versus Reagans, I actually liked the over, as both teams hit lefties pretty well, especially when the Rangers, when they're playing at home. But now that it's Mayers on the mound, I actually do like this game for the Angels to win it. I like him on the money line. Mike Mayers on the road this year, 22 innings, 2.82 ERA with 24 strikeouts, 4 home runs allowed, a 175 opponent's batting average. And in his home starts, however, 25 innings, a 7.92 ERA, 321 opponent's batting average, 9 home runs allowed. He has been unbackable when he's pitching in his home games. On the road, pretty good option. And I do think against the Rangers lineup that definitely hits lefties better than righties, this is a good spot for the Angels to grab a win, especially facing the young pitcher in Cole Reagans, who hasn't had a lot of success at the major league level, especially when he's pitching at home, where his ERA is at 6.43. He hasn't really had a ton of strikeouts at the major league level, giving up a good amount of base hits and home runs, as well as walks. So the Angels' numbers against lefties, sure, they do strike out quite a bit. This lineup strikes out a lot overall, and against lefties in the last 30 days, they're in the top 10 in strikeout rate. But in team OPS, they're up there in top 15 as well. Isolated power is actually number 2, just behind the St. Louis Cardinals. So this is a spot where I actually do like the Angels quite a bit. Give me the Los Angeles Angels on the money line. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Chicago White Sox. Aaron Savale and Dylan Cease are the starters. The Guardians have played a lot of baseball lately. They played in a doubleheader this weekend. They played the Twins on Monday, where the White Sox got the day off on Monday. So I don't love this spot here, just a situational-wise, for the Guardians having to travel from Cleveland to Chicago, playing a lot of baseball more than the White Sox have, and Dylan Cease on the other side for the White Sox, their best starter this year, one of the better starters in the American League overall, 14-7 with a 2.16 ERA, plenty of strikeouts, and this is a must-win game basically for the White Sox if they want to win that division, and it looks like the only way they're going to make the playoffs is if they win the AL Central. So 3.5 games back right now, actually 4 because the Guardians won on Monday. This is a must-win game when you got your ace on the mound facing Savale, who's got a 5.4 ERA. Now, Savale's been better in the second half of the year than he was the first half, but still, he's starting to give up those home runs again. 2 home runs allowed in his last start against the Mariners, giving up 4 earned runs completely. He was placed on the IL. Now he's back ready to pitch in this game, but I just don't love this spot for the Guardians. I think the White Sox are going to take this one. Give me the Chicago White Sox on the money line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Minnesota Twins. Dylan Bundy and Zach Greinke are the starters. Now, similar to what I just mentioned with the Guardians, the Twins have also played a lot of baseball lately because they played the Guardians this weekend. They played a doubleheader. They played on Monday. The Royals got the day off. And, Zach Greinke has been so good at Kauffman Stadium. As much as I don't like to back him in most spots, especially when he's pitching on the road, where he's got that ERA above 6, in his home outings, about 60 innings of work, he's got a 1.93 home ERA with an opponent's batting average of 250, only 1 home run allowed in those 60 innings. He knows how to pitch very well at Kauffman Stadium. He's facing a tired Minnesota Twins bullpen, gave up 11 runs on Monday overall. And Dylan Bundy, I don't really love him on the mound. It's a 4.68 ERA, giving up a good amount of home runs and not really striking out many batters. The big thing for Bundy is the strikeout numbers this season have really fallen off. 87 Ks and 127 innings of work. I don't like Bundy in this game. I think the Twins are in trouble. Give me the Kansas City Royals, especially because we're getting plus money on the money line. In our next game, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Colorado Rockies with Carlos Rodon and Kyle Freeland as the starters. Now, you'll rarely see me want to lay this kind of price with a road team or a home team in a Coors Field game with the Giants right now minus 160 on the money line. But to me, that's really the only option. I don't really like the total, and I don't really want to take the dog because Kyle Freeland, an ERA at 5.74 in his home outings this season. Now, the reason why I don't want to lay this kind of juice is because at Coors Field, a lot of times anything goes. We've seen really good starting pitchers go into Coors and get hit real hard. So, it's a hitter-friendly ballpark and then some. And really, any pitcher has the ability to get hit at any time. So, Carlos Rodon, he's had one start in his career at Coors. It wasn't a very good one, but he still is the better pitcher in this matchup. The Giants have hit lefties overall pretty well this season, even though it hasn't really been the case in the last month. But, Rodon is missing a lot of bats this year, a good amount of strikeouts, 220 in 167.2 innings. That's second in baseball strikeout-wise. And even though his road ERA isn't as good as his home ERA, I think he's good enough here for the Giants to grab a win. A game that I'm staying away from altogether, but I'm going to lean towards the Giants on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Oakland A's. We're going to see Luis Castillo and J.P. Sears on the bump. Now, J.P. Sears, one word to summarize his start to September is regression. 5 home runs in his last 2 starts combined, 11 earned runs in that stretch, only 6 innings of work. I don't like him in this spot against the Mariners lineup that's got pretty good numbers against lefties in the last 30 days. Number 10 in isolated power. The team OPS numbers are up there as well, and that's despite the BABIP being very, very low. At right now, dead last in the league at 220 in the last 30 days. It's very unsustainable, so we can expect even better numbers from the Mariners as the season continues against those lefties. I like him here against Sears, and Luis Castillo, has a little bit of a revenge game here for him because he struggled against the A's back in that game against Sears back on August 21st. That was a 5-inning, 4-earned-run performance, and ever since that start, he's been pitching really well for the Mariners, and I think he has a bounce-back outing and pitches well in this game as well. So give me the Seattle Mariners on the run line, laying the 1.5 runs. And in our final game of the night, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the San Diego Padres. Adam Wainwright and Mike Clevenger are your starters. This is a tricky game, in my opinion, as I think there's a lot of contradicting information. Mike Clevenger, in his last 5 starts, given up at least 1 home run, not really striking out many batters. Another start he pitched against the Mariners where he had less than 5 strikeouts. And he's given up 5 home runs and 10 earned runs in his last 2 starts combined, going 10 innings against the Dodgers and Mariners. You're facing a Cardinals lineup that crushes righties, crushes lefties. I don't love that. You look at the Padres' offensive numbers. They are not hitting righties very well themselves, and that's troubling when you're facing Adam Wainwright. Is the Padres 25th in the league in team OPS against righties in the last 30 days, 23rd in isolated power. So I don't love those 2 factors. Mike Clevenger struggling and the Padres' number struggling offensively against righties. However, Adam Wainwright, I don't really love this particular spot for him because even though the Padres have struggled against righties, he's only had 1 road start since July 27th. That was against the Cubs on August 23rd. He pitched pretty well in that game. I was at Wrigley Field, but the wind was blowing in that one, so it's set up for a good start for him. So he hasn't really been tested away from home this season, and when he has, his ERA has been at 4.43. So a lot of Busch Stadium starts. He's kind of gotten into a rhythm pitching at home. Now, I know he's a veteran. He's been there, done that. A lot of situations he's been there. However, I just don't love this spot being on the road, only the second time since over 2 months ago, and I do think this could be a spot where the Padres offense gets going against righties. This right now, I'm leaning towards the over in this game, but this is a game I'm probably going to have to dig deeper in, see if we can maybe find an angle or some value on either side, but I'm going to take the over in this Cardinals-Padres game because I think the total set just a little bit too low. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday, September 20th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.